Hey, what's going on, my scholars? It's your professor here, the Enlightened Enlisted, and are social justice warriors taking over Enlisted, or are the developers following history? Well, you're about to find out. Guys, I want to let you know that Team YouTube has surpassed Team Twitch in followers, which is awesome. But if you really enjoy talking live history, you can always give me a follow on the link below on Twitch. I'd love to talk to you. I also do want to apologize for taking this long to get this out. Literally every time I told myself I was going to dedicate time to the research and development of this video, Darkflow decides to do more news releases, so I had to switch focus.
Sorry, you mind running that by me again? I must have had a chunk of brimstone wedged in my ear or something.
Then read my lips. Forget it.
Aren't we forgetting one teensy-weensy but ever so crucial little tiny detail? I own you!
Now, the controversy with women being added to Enlisted started when the developers released this statement in their Q&A on June 15th, 2001. Yeah, that's right, it's taken me this long to get all the research done for this video, so if you like it, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Anyways, the developers answered the question, are there plans to add female characters to the game with, quote, yes, we have plans for historical squads when women actually fought, end quote. The day after this release, the forums and subreddits were filled with varying opinions on this announcement. And that is no surprise, as we've seen the same issue arise in other games and movies such as Star Wars and so on. This controversial topic is still being addressed by the Department of Defense for the US military today. However, we do have a historical precedent set for the developers at Darkflow to follow. If you guys at Darkflow are watching this video, please hire me as your historian. It is my opinion that the best way to introduce females to this game lies in the Soviet side of campaigns. With 800,000 females serving in the USSR during World War II, that is roughly 5% of the Red Army strength. While most served in supporting roles, we have many examples of females serving on the front lines. The famous and most commonly known examples of this are the Soviet females that served as snipers. They would absolutely wreck German infantry throughout the war, with over 2,400 filling that role. Only 500, however, would survive the entire war. That is an over 80% casualty rate, and their stories are absolutely incredible. Sadly, we cannot cover all of them, but some of the more prominent figures are Kladvia Kulenin, who was 17 when she entered the service. She would be accredited with 227 confirmed kills. Tatiana Brazina was wounded, captured, tortured, and later executed by Germans, but not before she was accredited with 36 confirmed kills. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, who was nicknamed Lady Death, is probably the most recognized name achieving the rank of Major and meeting First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. But it would be her astonishing 309 confirmed kills, with 36 of those being enemy snipers, that would make her a legend in Soviet history. With the high numbers of females serving in the role of sniper, I see no problem with a squad of female snipers being added to future campaigns with the Soviet forces. However, there are other examples of Soviet females. One of these stories is Manshuk Madovina, who was a Soviet machine gunner from the Ural Mountains. She would see action with the 100th Rifle Brigade in the latter part of 1943. In action, her machine gunner detachment would all be destroyed by artillery fire from the Germans. As the surviving Soviet forces withdrew, Manshuk would hold her position on a strategic hill in Neville. She, armed with her Maxim machine gun, would repel several German attacks on the hill. On one such attack, she would be severely wounded. Unfazed by her wounds, she would continue to fight until she bled out. Reports say she killed 70 German soldiers, stalling their advance for most of the day. She was 20 years old at the time of her death. Her gravesite is 600 yards from the position she so fiercely held. For her actions, she would become the first Asian female to receive the Hero of the Soviet Union, the equivalent of the Medal of Honor in the United States. I hope they seriously consider recognizing this brave woman in a Gold Order troop unlock. Or do you guys think she should have her own squad of machine gunners represented? Let me know in the comments below. We have one more example of female units in combat before we get into the other nations, and trust me, you're going to want to hear them as well. What if I told you that Stalingrad was probably saved by a group of teenage girls? Hard to believe, as many historians consider this the turning point of World War II, right? Well, the 1077th Anti-Aircraft Regiment could very well hold this claim. The German Sixth Army is advancing towards Stalingrad, and the Soviet situation looks desperate as the 16th Panzers look forward and see the Volga River in their sights. They are rapidly advancing to cut off the city completely, but a small detachment of 354 personnel and only 60 guns stands in their way. They have no infantry support, are low on ammunition, and worst of all, they have no armor-piercing rounds to take on the enemy tanks. The experienced 16th Panzer is rolling towards them. Nevertheless, they lower their guns and open fire with their flak anti-air rounds. The two units would exchange fire all day, with the attacks of the 16th being ground to a halt until late into the afternoon. The war diary of the 16th Panzer says, quote, "We had to fight shot for shot against 37 anti-aircraft positions until all were destroyed. These positions were manned by a group of tenacious fighting women," end quote. Before these positions were destroyed, it delayed the Germans long enough for a militia unit made up of factory workers to show up, supported by two brand new T-34 tanks made directly in the famous tank factory of Stalingrad, to show up and defend the exposed northern flank. Pretty impressive stuff if you ask me, and 100% should be a premium squad in the Stalingrad campaign. But what about the other side of the coin? Do the Germans have any historical context to add females into the game? Well, the answer is a little bit more complex than the Russian side, as the Nazis were strongly against females assuming roles outside of the traditional role. However, there are some incredibly interesting individual pilots that saw action in the sky that could be represented in game. The first one I would look at is Beate Stauffenberg, who was related to Colonel Stauffenberg of the Wehrmacht, who was the officer that attempted to kill Hitler with a bomb at the Wolf's Lair, and is represented by Tom Cruise in the movie Valkyrie. She would receive the Iron Cross Second Class for her service in aircraft testing and training. She would be killed by an American P-51 while she flew an unarmed training aircraft. The two that could be added to the Battle of Berlin campaign are Beate Uhse and Hannah Reichstück. Beate is the least controversial of the two. Also, being a test pilot for the Germans, she flew everything from an Me-262 to a Junker 88, always fully armed. Her husband was a night fighter in the Luftwaffe and was killed in 1944. When the Soviets reached Berlin, she would leave her squadron, headed by car to Berlin to save her son, nanny, and two wounded German soldiers. She would do this by taking off in an FH-104, a plane she had never flown before. It is said that she was reading the manual as they fueled the plane. She would fly west to surrender to the British. If that wasn't enough, she would become a multi-millionaire and would only learn to drive a car at the age of 75. She would pass away at the age of 81 in Switzerland back in 2001. Hannah Reich is the most controversial addition to this video, and I'm not sure if they should add her or not, since she was a fanatical Nazi and her dedication to the Fuhrer is seen in the movie Downfall. I applaud the actor who portrayed her because she did an amazing job representing Hannah. Hannah would receive the Iron Cross First Class and her Pilot Observation Badge, with diamonds being the only female to receive such a high decoration. This wouldn't be her only achievement, as she would accomplish in her lifetime, being the first woman to fly a jet aircraft, a helicopter, and being one of only 3 women to be accepted into the Society of Experimental Test Pilots as an honorary member. Oddly enough, she was also invited to the White House by President Kennedy. However, during the war, she was a test pilot and mini-celebrity within the aviation arm of the Luftwaffe. But in 1945, she was in the Führer bunker, pleading with Hitler to leave Berlin. To accomplish this, she flew into Berlin, landing on an improvised airstrip near the Brandenburg Gate in an Fi-156. Unsuccessful in her attempts to get the leader of the Third Reich to flee, she took off from the same airfield, this time in an AR-96 training aircraft, which was shot at mercilessly by members of the Third Shock Army, who believed Hitler could be fleeing Berlin. Hannah would fly to the American lines and was captured by military intelligence officers. She was later reported to have been completely unaware of German atrocities, wrote several books, and holds over 40 aviation world records, some standing to this day. She would pass at the age of 67 in 1979. Her gravesite is located in Strasbourg. All these female German flyers could be represented with either premium squads or gold order troops in my opinion. But as for the ground combat units, there are no historical reference for these developers to add, as in late 1944 an infantry battalion of females was being raised, but the war would end before it could be done. For other campaigns, we currently have no real example of ground or air fighting. There were many females that served in the US and British forces, but none of them seeing frontline combat. I would, however, like to see female French resistance squads added to whatever campaign the developers have in store for France. But for the sake and length of this video, I will save those for when that information is and if it is announced. So, what do you guys think? Do you agree with my examples of how women should be added to this game or not? Do you have something to add? Please comment down below. While you're down there, if you liked today's video, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me convince my wife that I can do this as a full-time job. Until next time, scholars, hit those books and hit those bottles. Cheers.